Someone recently raised with me the issue of collective punishment in Judaism, that there does seem, while we do believe that people have individual divine providence, there is also a sense that God deals with people partly in terms of how their whole nation is acting and behaving morally. And sometimes we see that people can be individuals who might not necessarily be guilty of a crime might be punished collectively. So, for example, and perhaps you can correct me on whether I'm mischaracterizing this, but as far as I understand it, I don't think we believe that every single firstborn in Egypt was, necessarily part of this, persecution of the Jews in Egypt, I think, and yet they all perish in the plague of the firstborn. There are other instances where the Jewish people themselves have suffered, and some people say that some of our challenges and sufferings throughout our past 2,000 years of exile are, even though there are individual righteous people within our community, that even they will suffer because of the makeup of the collective. One of the things that I kind of thought in response was, well, I live in a society. Let's say that a group of people in the UK decide to start a criminal gang. I might not be necessarily directly responsible for them, but I'm still going to suffer because that means there's higher crime rates. So I kind of understand how, on a practical level, it doesn't even matter whether it's fair or not. It's just a reality that you have collective punishment, so to speak, or collective consequences. But I'm sort of asking, is it fair when it comes to how is it? God can make the world work in whatever way He wants to, and is it a fair way to deal with people?
Well, I think the first thing is it doesn't matter whether it's fair or not, it's real. And that means humans are not just individuals. The language we speak is not individual, the clothes we wear are not individual. In fact, very few of our decisions we ever make are individual. They are individuated choices within a spectrum that our family, more our society, or set of societies that exist that we have access to, have arrayed in front of us. The challenge, in theory, collective guilt makes sense because of exactly what I just said. Take, for example, the biblical story of the Achan, right? The Israel comes into the land, one person sins, and the entire nation is defeated in battle. And then they have to work through a process of determining which tribe it was, and then within which tribe, which ancestral home, which family, and so forth. And then eventually the individual's isolated, and the punishment works in concentric circles. So the point is that, of course, the individual bears the lion's share of the burden. But where a family's value system was behind that individual, then the family has some sense of consequence. And when the community's values were behind that individual, the community has some sense of consequence too. Now, how that applies, I think individual examples you brought are not fair because one needs to look specifically at each particular case and see exactly what's going on. But the principle that in theory, some form of collective punishment, we do it nowadays, we embargo countries, right? We put economic sanctions on countries, sometimes actually really over the political system they're functioning in. A liberal system will always try to push for the punishing the individual only, and that's because it's quite hard for humans to really determine the scales of responsibility. It's easier for God to, and almost all collective punishment in Torah is done by God, and then it will usually function in some kind of concentric circles of where the problems lie. But in principle, it's really a part of a deeper Torah belief that individuals are individuals, but we're also, at a deeper level, parts of bigger structures. There is a oneness that still links us together, and that manifests in social behavior, manifests in individual behavior. Can we go and discriminate on that level? Can we, punish on that level? As humans, that's quite a tough thing to do. But in principle, when an individual has gone wrong, should we look at ourselves and say, have we contributed on some level to this? Have we allowed something to go like this? I think actually the answer should be yes.
So you're saying the opposite, actually, that when we say righteous people suffer, like you say, within a nation, righteous people suffer because of the acts of evil people. There is a partly responsibility on the righteous people to do more. Potentially. This goes back to the question you asked earlier. In some cases, yes. In some cases, no. Like the part of the problem in a Torah worldview is it's an integrated system. You ask about one particular bit, you often need to put in context to everything else. We do sometimes speak about the righteous bearing responsibility for the nation. Yes, more so. Again, difference between fault versus responsibility for rectifying.
We do sometimes talk about the collective as bearing aspects of responsibility. I think all those are legitimate, all those are correct. They can be abused, such as, somebody from a town did something wrong, let's punish the entire town. And that's why we kind of, in the liberal world, moved very far away from that. And humans trying to apply it is usually pretty bad. Sometimes we have no choice but to do so. Sometimes, sometimes you have to put a curfew on a town because there's too many criminals. Everyone suffers. What can you do? That's not even really collective punishment. That's just needed. But in principle, if you could have a God's eye view of the situation, of course, when somebody does something wrong, you'd look to wider circles of where things go. So leaving punishment out of the question, what that means is that we have to constantly look at how we can improve our communities, improve our societies, improve everything if we want to improve individual behavior.
Yeah. Got it. Okay. So basically, it's not so much the whole collective punishment issue is less a matter of, is it fair or not? It's just a reality.
Right.
It's just real.
No, and therefore it is fair. If it could be done with the sensitivity from God's perspective.
Right.
It's when it's vindictive, when it's a sense of, you hurt me, I want to take revenge, but it doesn't satisfy me to hurt one person, smash. I mean, so that's the exact language is used by Haman wanting to kill the Jews, because he really only blamed one individual, but it wasn't enough to satisfy anger, so boom, it was destroyed. That type of collective punishment will be very immoral. But the type that says, if you could have a God's eye perspective, I want to work out exactly where the problem is, and it's much deeper. Yes, it's concentrated into one individual who needs the biggest punishment, but there's also aspect of something wrong further afield. That is a reality.
Rabbi Rowe, always a pleasure. Thank you.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.